Hello, my name is Johan Falk. I work at NodeOne Scandinavia. This is the NodeOne website. This is Pontus Nilsson, cool guy. He's a great guy. And this is the DrupalCon, also a pretty good guy. This up here is the Learn Drupal library that we have, containing quite a few screencast series you can watch in order to learn Drupal, mainly site building and configuration, but some other things as well. If you like that, you probably also like the book Drupal 7 The Essentials. You can buy it at your local Amazon store. If you do that, I will be happy because I wrote the book and I like when people read it. You are watching episode 3 of the Learn the Rules Framework screencast series. It has turned out that these episodes are getting pretty long. I'm aiming at 10 minutes or so, but I've got now like 15 and 20 minutes episode, and that's not really what I want. We'll see if I can manage to keep it down in this one. I'm not sure I will be able to do that because this is also a pretty interesting and important episode where I cover some important and interesting topics. We're going to look at lists and loops in rules, which are pretty cool. It's a way of managing multiple value data and handling them, both adding new data to it and using loops to iterate through them and do things. Right, so in the previous screencast I made a rule that reacted on whenever we view a piece of content, which will kind of make it difficult to do anything sensible on the site without getting messages all the time. So here is that rule. If I open the settings here, I can disable the active thing, save here. If I now go back to my rules overview page, we have an inactive rule on the site, which is what I want. I haven't deleted it, I just made it inactive. That's kind of useful sometimes. So we're going to look at lists and loops. I'm going to add myself a new rule, and I'm going to have this one acting on when I save, well, yeah, when I update articles. Let's have a look at articles here. Article 2 and edit. We have tags here, which is a multiple value field where we add taxonomy terms. As we saw at the end of the previous screencast, rules recognizes that this is a multiple value field and allows us to fetch each term individually if we want to. This will be we'll work with this in this new reaction that I create. So this will be an example rule on article save. React on event before saving content is probably a good thing. Save. Right, before saving content. Now, as we saw in the previous screencast, in order to be able to work with this field, we have to tell rules that the field exists. So I'm going to add a condition here requiring that we work with articles in this case. I could use this entity has field as well, and I'm going to use content is of type node, the saved content I here. This event provides more data than the just node is viewed event or new node is created event, because we also have the unchanged node here, which is pretty useful sometimes, but I'm not going to work with that, use that right now. The saved content should be an article. Save. Then let's actually work with loops. Then I'm going to loop through, well, right now, just loop through all the tags that we have and display each of them, each of their names. So I'm going to add a loop here. Now, rules require us to enter a list here. Lists are their own data types in rules, just like strings or nodes or entities or things like that. And this data selection thing allows us to drill down through the available content and fetch something that is a list. And this one is node field tags. we get a chance to label this list that we get, that we're going to loop over. I'm going to call it not the current list item, but the current term. Current term. Right, this is, if you have been doing PHP or something where you have for each loops, this is basically a for each loop. Okay, so when we save content, if we're working with an article, loop through all the tags, and then inside, this is cool, inside the loop we can add an action. So add here, and I'm just going to use a thing we saw before, show a message on the site, like that. And check this out here, replacement patterns. We now have the current term available as an object. So we can have here current term name, for example. I'm a bit curious if we have also... No, okay, we don't have the number of the iteration, which is kind of a shame. It would be nice to say term number 5 is this, term number 6 is this when we look through it. The following tag, well, the article has the current term name tag. Save. Alright, so now if I go back here, no, sorry, I should edit it and save. We have beta, gamma and delta here, and if I save, I should trigger my rule. Yep, it loops through all these tags and says we have beta, gamma and delta tags. Great, it works. This particular example, of course, is not extremely useful because we kind of can read the tags anyway. But if we had, for example, a number of user references on the field, on the node, we could, when we save it, send emails to the users, things like that, which would be pretty useful compared to just displaying the tag name. We could do more complex stuff. We'll have a look at that in what I think is screencast 7 and components. Maybe it will be screencast 8, where we can make more complex things happen within this loop, which is a pretty cool thing. Alright, so we can use loops whenever we have lists. There are a number of different lists we have available in rules. Well, each data type actually can be a list. Rules has a framework allowing for that automatically. Yes, so next thing I'm going to show you is how to add things to this list. Well, not to this loop list, but to this multiple value field being tags here. Alright. There is an action called add an item to a list, and I'm going to use that to add a new term to the list of tags on the article. However, we cannot really do that without loading the object, the data that we want to add. We can't just say add an item to a list, and to this list of tags add this tag unless we have the tag we want to add. So what we're going to do then is, let's see, we can't use that, okay. We should probably fetch entity by ID. I'm going to add the alpha tag to the node we're viewing, for example. I was looking for a taxonomy category, taxonomy group here, but couldn't find one. We have, for example, for nodes... No, we don't. I thought we had a special action for loading a selected node. But we're going to use this then. Fetch entity by ID. We could fetch it by property as well. Trying to fetch, say, a term called alpha. Right now I'm just going to fetch the term with ID 1, which I happen to know is alpha. Alright, this will guide us through, well, a multi-step configuration. What kind of entity should be fetched? Well, I'm going to fetch a taxonomy term. Here's pretty cool. We can see all the entities declared to Drupal right now, the entity types. We can, for example, see that taxonomy vocabularies are entities as well, which is not obvious when you configure Drupal. And this is pretty controversial, I would say. Rules configuration are entities as well. Which I've heard is not really something that it has to be, or it's sacred, something like that. It's just a pretty convenient way of storing configuration. It could, for example, be CTools plugins, CTools, yeah, plugins as well. CTools exportables, I guess. Well, I'm going to add a loaded taxonomy term, continue. I'm going to use the value 1 for identifier. As you can see, we can switch to data selection and try to fetch things from here. Ooh. And we can use offsets as well. That could be pretty interesting. Fetch the highest number of terms, well, term IDs on the node and add one, and add that term. But let's not overcomplicate things. I'm just going to fetch term number 1. I'm going to call it the alpha term. Alpha term save. Alright, so here it's fetch entity by ID. We fetch the alpha taxonomy term. Now I'm going to add the action add an item to a list. Alright, what list do you want to add something to? Here I have my data selection as I did before. Field tags, that is a list. Rules will verify that this actually is a list, so I don't try to use the node title or something as a list, which wouldn't make sense. Continue. Now rules also knows that this is a list of taxonomy terms, so it right now just fetches the first taxonomy term, well, the first object I have, data object that fits this, and suggest that as the item to add. That's what I want to add. I could probably do something like this, go to the node, field tags, and tag number 2. That wouldn't really make sense. Alpha term. Here is a pretty useful thing, enforce uniqueness. I'm going to leave this empty, which means every time I say, well, I will add alpha to the node, even if it was there already. We can select whether to append or prepend to the list. Let's put it at the end. Save. Alright, so now we should look through the tags, display them, load the alpha term and add it to the tags. Let's see if that works. I'm going to edit this and save. And we have beta, gamma, delta and alpha. If I edit and save, we should have 2 alphas. Here we have alpha here again. Save. Yeah, 2 alphas. And if I edit this, add item to a list, and check this enforce uniqueness, then it will not be added if the object is already present in the list. Save. This is pretty fun. Edit article 2, scroll down. You can see here the widget actually strips off one of the alpha tags here. So I will probably end up with 1 now instead of 2. Yeah, cool. Right, and that's how it goes. You can use lists. Well, what's the takeaway message here? We have multiple value things in rules. They are called lists. You can use them in, well, one way of using them that is really useful is this loop thing, where you iterate through each of them and can perform actions on them, like sending emails to users, or in this case, just displaying a message on the site. You can also add stuff to the lists. Then you have to load the objects, data objects that you want to add. Usually there are entities, Drupal entities, but it could be a list of strings or something that you have to have a string instead. Strings, I guess you can just enter directly through the UI, rules UI, as you could probably with the URIs or or dates, but taxonomy terms or other entities are pretty difficult to just enter manually into the interface. You have to load them and then shove them into the list. You can enforce uniqueness, that's pretty cool. And I guess that's it. Oh, here's a pretty important thing that I didn't really mention. The tag here, current term name, for each iteration through the loop, through the list, we get the current value, the currently active term in this case. And I got here to set the label of that and the machine name of that. And that was the base of this token that I used to output each taxonomy term. Right. I suppose that's it. I think I am definitely below 15 minutes. I think I'm at 12 or something. You know better than me at this case. In this case, because you're watching this, I'm not. Yeah, lists are their own data types and rules. Each data type automatically gets a list type as well when you declare it for 2 rules. And I guess that's it. See you in the next screencast. Then we're going to look at events and what happens when you have multiple events for a reaction rule. See you there. Bye.